Okay. At least we have the same colors, Karolina. That's nice, huh?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, you got the memo. Let's wait for Katrina now.
It's female color. It's female power.
Yeah,
I didn't get the memo, so I'm quite bored.
Right.
With black.
We give you 1 minute. You can change. I mean, like.
We need all to make a word, Katrina. That's
I know, huh? So good now.
Good. Right. Wonderful. You tell me when I can start.
Okay. Hi
Sarah.
there. So I think we'll get started because we're running a bit behind schedule. So thanks everyone for joining the session today. This session is the impacts of COVID-19 on women's careers. So today with us, we have Karolina Korth. So Karolina is a trained psychologist with a passion for innovation and has over 10 years of experience in transformation in multinationals. She has experience in corporate innovation and business development in healthcare and smart cities. And currently she is the Chief Digital Officer and Head of Strategy at Siemens Mobility in Southwest Europe. Karolina is also a co-founder of Health 2.0 Kuala Lumpur and the Female Voice of Mobility, which is a movement to empower women in male-dominated industries. So welcome, Karolina. We also have Katrina Walker. So Katrina is the founder and CEO of CodeOp, which is an international tech school on a mission to lead the charge in transforming the face of culture of tech worldwide. Prior to launching the first coding school for women in Barcelona, trans and non-binary people, she worked on the central data science team at eDreams. And CodeOp has trained women between the ages of 18 to 45 from over 40 different countries worldwide in product management, data analytics, and full stack development. So we're really happy to have you, Katrina. And leading us through the panel today, we have Magda Rosenmöller. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So she is a senior lecturer in the Department of Production Technology and Operations Management. She also teaches the second-year MBA elective course on health sector management, and she's also a lecturer in the executive education department. So she's currently in charge of the scientific coordination of the European Commission research project on patient mobility. She is recently appointed to the editorial board of the EU Public Health Portal and the newly created Journal of Healthcare Management and Marketing. So a very impressive bunch that we have today. And with that, Magda, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. So Sarah and Juliana from the team who did a great job in preparing this panel and have particularly drawn our attention of this McKinsey Global Institute report that actually looks into, well, how important are women for the general economy? And now with COVID, what is COVID doing to the jobs, particularly to female jobs? And it looks like that females are being driven out of their jobs more than men, because probably these are some lower paid jobs, some less necessary jobs probably. So the McKinsey actually makes the point of saying, you should be careful. Women do make an important contribution to the general economy. If we reduce now the gender parity, that will probably also reduce future GDP, so future economic growth. So that's kind of the basic of this recommendable McKinsey report. That's the macro view. I would like to add a few ideas that we have been looking at. So we work on the We Health project that is European Commission funded. That's women empowerment, if one wants so, in healthcare. So to drive up the role of women in healthcare, you see that we have 70% of the health force is actually women, and these are those women that now are in the intensive care unit and fighting COVID. And they're standing there, and we're at the beginning, at least the first wave, we were clapping every evening. Now we're even tired of that. Imagine how tired they are. But we have, so 70% of the workforce is women, but we only have about 7% up in the executive layer. And also for the entrepreneurs, and it's great to have Katrina here, there's not a high percentage of women in the being an entrepreneur. And that lets me, the second point beside like the impact, I'd like also to see what women can contribute to the solution of the crisis. And there are several articles by Harvard Business School and also The Guardian that actually, particularly looking into the first wave, that asking the question why women-run country actually doing better than male-run country, and looking into, well, women maybe seeing more the common good, are more open to receive advice from experts. There might be, and that's particularly the truth for, we have just seen her picture here, for Jacinta Ardern from New Zealand, are more compassionate in the way they communicate things, no? And get people to understand the seriousness of the situation. So I would have two questions I'd love to see today. One is this impact, and on the other side is what can women do actually to solve the crisis and maybe do better. So the word parity is fine, it makes sense, it's a right to have a parity in jobs, but I would say we are too different, and what can women actually contribute that men do not do. But I'd like to start with the first question. Maybe Karolina, start with you. The personal impact of the crisis on your life and some of the aspects that McKinsey describes, maybe from a personal or from some colleague point of view, maybe also an idea what your company is doing about that.
Oh yeah, thanks so much. I think that there is no one single person that can say like, but that's what is happening around us. It doesn't impact me at all, no? And I am coming from a pretty privileged position, yeah, because I do not have kids to take care of. I do not have my parents that perhaps are elderly and they need my attention and so on. So I have been probably less impacted, but like even in my environment, yeah, I just like looking at my career, working from home together with my boyfriend, having open kitchen, loft apartment. It was impossible to work for us. We could literally see on a daily basis our boss like decreasing productivity because we simply didn't have the right environment to work anymore if we are both working from home. And I think that like, and we have this privileged situation that it's only two of us. Imagine right now if you have multi-generation family, if you have kids, if you like need to do homeschooling and so on, like an additional task. So I just like, I think that like this, my experience, although it was like quite limited, no, like, and like my pain was a kind of limited, and we at the end of the day need to find a better place to live, a bigger apartment. But it indicated me what is the pain and what are the struggles of every single person that right now is confronted with the uncertainty about school opening or not, and so on, like that they need to rearrange their working hours. And I think we have been, as a company, I'm just like very happy that we we demonstrated a lot of flexibility. So basically we were just like very flexible about like when the meetings are done, when the deadlines are, and so on, because we knew that many people have to work in very unusual times once kids are in bed and so on. So like we definitely need to adjust to that. But I think that like one thing is what the company is doing, and the second thing is very often what the colleagues are perceiving. No, like I've been recently in the call when someone just like complains, "Excuse me, there is some noise or some kids screaming in the background," and I think that like we need to have compassion. This is not that like someone has like this luxury of just like switching them off, right? That simply doesn't exist. So I think that like first of all we need to have this compassion that like this is happening, and I think that like we need to learn it. This is one on the organizational way, but like each of us. And secondly, I've been also once in a call and there was like a baby crying in the background, and one of my colleague, a female colleague, has been made aware that it's probably hers, and she said like, no, mine is sleeping. It was male colleague and it was his kid. But very often, we do believe that like if there is a kid's noise, probably there is a woman that needs to take care of it, right? And then like probably she is like underperforming. That right now the call is being a little bit disturbed by the child's noise. So I think that like right now, and that's I'm just like more speaking now as a psychologist. No, I encourage like everybody to be like a little bit more compassionate, with our environment, our colleagues that we are working with, but also with ourselves. We are going through something that we haven't done in the past and so on. And we're just like learning and making a lot of mistakes. So I think just like be soft also on you, on your also career goals and so on. And especially I'm saying it, I can imagine like there are like a lot of very ambitious ESS students like dialing in and so on. And I just like, I am frustrated sometimes with myself that I just like, I cannot give this 120% because of several reasons that are not in my hand and not in my control. Perhaps I think that like what we have to definitely learn and integrate this compassion in our career, that we know that in order to do it sustainable, it has to be for us.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Karolina. This compassionate. That was the Harvard Business School tip of the day today. Was about the work from home burnout, and I think your recommendation of saying be a bit compassionate also with yourself is very important. That particularly probably women are doing a lot of jobs at the same time. But let me turn to Katrina. Katrina, just your personal what was this crisis or is this crisis for you? And yeah, just a few reflection on how you survive.
Yeah, well, similar to Karolina, I also come from a bit of privilege in the sense that my family is back in the United States. I don't have children aside from a lovely cat. And therefore, you know, my work could largely be done at home. Also, my partner was able to transition to a work from home situation. So structurally speaking, you know, we were able to ride out the wave in 2020, you know, quite easily. That said, to some extent, I do have a baby, and that is this startup, no, that I launched in 2018, and it's this critical period. And so, you know, 2020 Q1 started really strong after, you know, fighting a hard fight. We got to a place of being cash flow positive. And so the intention really was in Q2 to start raising and continue to grow the company. Then we were all hit with COVID, and we had to refactor our priorities to make sure that we could stay afloat as a company. How did that pan out? Well, the way it panned out for CodeOp is not necessarily representative of how it panned out for other female founders. In October, we had a great Q3. We started raising again and got an offer on the table. That's my personal story. We also know the statistics are in that in 2020, funding to female-founded companies went down by 30%. That's quite significant because already we know of all the hoops women need to jump through who want to start companies and get funding. They already got a very small portion of the investment pie. You know, CodeOp is in the business of supporting women. It's a women-founded company. And so if COVID is affecting women disproportionately, then we were sort of hit by it in both ends because our customers were affected by this. And then certainly as a company, we also had our challenges.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Maybe just one question about the financing. Could you compare that to male companies? You think that female companies have been receiving less finance? I mean, we know already that for startups, it's very difficult if you have a women-only team presenting to the venture capitalists. They usually, I had female women coach, already retired with a lot of experience, let's put it that way. And she said, I usually tell them have at least one man on the team. So at least one man, that's better for the venture capitalists. How do that play out? And this comparison to the reduction in funding with male companies?
Yeah, I mean, so male-founded companies were also hit by this, but women were hit disproportionately, right? And the impact of that is greater because already we were getting a smaller amount of investment.
Yeah, so you can say that, have you been in contact with other entrepreneurs, male or female, and see how they live the crisis? Probably it depends on what technology you're working on, no? And what innovation you're working on.
It's quite diverse, huh? But in fact, I had a wonderful coffee yesterday with an alumni of ESA who has a company, and we were sharing stories, and they started raising right before COVID, and basically it completely crashed, and he had to lay off some of his top engineers. He was able in October to raise a bit more, so they're still alive and well, but he certainly also felt it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have seen health-related companies, particularly telemedicine companies, have been going up. Huh?
Also, I mean, so CodeOp is within the realm of education, and digital education became particularly important during COVID.
Yes. Maybe, Karolina, on these, the article, the McKinsey article describes particularly different things, and you already touched on childcare and also the attitude. No, the example that we had, well, it was not a male, it was not a female, it was the baby of a male colleague. But there's another thing that the article is rising is the access to, and it's meant also for a global health. So it also talks about not only our world, but also Africa, South America world that has less resources. But this access, the importance in this crisis to be part of the active labor world is digital transformation. So what can you tell us about women through a digital transformation or through digital technology, the access to the labor force or to work in general, and if maybe that, if you have seen this as McKinsey describes, it's also an issue, and what can we do about it? You're muted. No. You might just take it out. That usually works also. Okay. She will solve that. Maybe then, well, maybe the word on the attitude, Katrina. What has been this kind of thinking, like what you said, no? The baby is probably the one from a colleague, from a female colleague. Have you seen this attitude issue also as being a female entrepreneur?
Sorry, the attitude, what specifically?
But if the general, McKinsey describes also the attitude, no, that we all have an idea about what women should do and not do. And they also said that more generally it should be, we use that men are working, men are bringing, you know, and having now a higher female workforce. It's more the right of men to access to the no, that's one of our thoughts that we, particularly of the older generation, that we still kind of and maybe not consciously but unconsciously believe. No, how do you see that in your environment?
Yeah, that comes up a lot, obviously, in supporting women's transition into tech and dealing with women across cultures. You know, our product is a boot camp, which it costs a lot of money to do this education. And so it means often that women have to go back to their families and get their family on board to support something like this. And so that's been a tremendous barrier for women that we're in reach of. Also, certainly, you know, from the funding perspective, trying to find, we're dealing with a fair amount of discrimination. And I think it's mostly implicit. No, it's nothing quite overt. but just this lack of understanding of where we're coming from, and the fact that we want to create products that are by us, because we really understand what the problems are. So I think we're confronted on it in different levels, and it's going to take quite a bit of work to ultimately invest in educating the public and also women that, hey, there's opportunities for you in tech, and it might mean you're going against the grain for now. But we need to show examples of women who are doing it to inspire others, as well as shift the consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think particularly the issue of role models. In our project, the We Health project, we have been using a lot role models just to say, well, it's possible, no? Then that is changing probably the preconception or the attitude that we have. So we definitely need to make a story on you as a role model, Katrina. I see that Karolina is...
I changed, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Perfect.
Oof. Awesome. Okay, so guys.
Oh, but exactly, we were talking about access, technology access for women. It was like perfect timing.
Exactly. That's what I thought. If you don't have access, you don't have voice. And then if you don't have voice, you cannot really shape in which direction society is moving. So I had like a short glimpse of how it feels, right? And I think that like, in this study, so like as if like I think that like they first of all like they demonstrated that like women are stronger impacted by COVID, also because women are doing so much unpaid job, right? So I think that like over the last years we've been like very much fooling ourselves that we are doing so much better because we have higher employment of women, we have more women like just like having their own salary, having independence, but we didn't pay attention that like this unpaid job is still done by women. And the problem is like the day has 24 hours. So I even see like that in the developed countries, right? I mean, like if the day has 24 hours and you're doing paid job plus unpaid job, what are the chances that you do have time to develop yourself? And I'm just like speaking about those women that do even have access to digital means, but they have zero digital literacy. And I think this is already alarming, no? Like that they are not like striving for position in digital sector and so on, although they do have access. And now just like think about, and we are just like, and now like just like think about those, they simply do not have access at all. Like they're just like basically cut out of it. And I think just like very often, and I think that like the only way how we can do that, and I'm just like very happy, very glad that you both are working in education. And I'm just like, I think that like we can only if we make digitalization as a part of education, and we understand that like digital literacy and digital access, this is like reading and writing in the past. And we need to give it to everybody. Otherwise, they want like kids and like in the future also adults will not have the same career chances. And I think that like this is what I'm just like seeing, that like even the time factor is like right now limiting women in the developed countries in order to really compete with males that are like more digital literate, no? Like, and then like they have like higher digital knowledge.
Yeah, I think very good you raised the point of education. No? We have these seen these pictures where we have these young girls that cannot access school because they don't have neither iPhone or iPad, and not in Africa, here in Spain or in Europe. And it's just, and it's so little costly, to have a small tablet or and they were given one, I don't know, in the community, and you could see this girl suddenly, she has a chance, of moving up. So I think already that's probably a very important thing. How is it in the companies, like your company, Karolina? Do you encourage now, probably over the last year, you have been doing a lot on digital literacy of the people working there. What can companies do in order to drive that process for men and women? But as we know, that's probably women will benefit more from that.
Absolutely. And I think that there was like a lot to be done in the mobility sector. And I just my microphone stopped working. And the initiative that I started is called Female Voice in Mobility, because I've been always saying that we need to hear more female voices, right? In mobility sector, we only have 20% of women worldwide, right? This is also one of the sectors with one of the highest gender pay gaps. So you can imagine there is like a lot to be done, like on our on our side, on the side of all mobility companies. And I have started this initiative, and it basically had like 3 pillars. One is improving digital literacy of the employees already working within the company, like demystifying digitalization, because women are impacted, but
just
also
speak a little louder, because or just put the mic a bit.
Okay. So it is women are impacted, but also, like, for example, more employees with a longer experience at the company. Sometimes they also like felt a little bit that they are missing out on digitalization, and very often right now digitalization is so mystified that basically we started something which is called Digital Academy. When we are demystifying digitalization, we are showing the examples of like how everybody's already using it, how this is already impacting mobility and so on, like in order to make it more accessible for all employees, right? And I think there's like a lot of women are like really participating, and we are like bringing also like female speakers from other companies to show what you were just also saying, like to show role models. And we also recognize that we need to start also early on. So we are collaborating with business schools in order to encourage also women, although like business schools and universities are like very often these women are not thinking about digital careers, right? I mean, or just like for example, like perhaps looking at other industries. So we are just collaborating also with business schools, and then we have collaboration with organizations that are supporting kids, and in order to improve digital literacy of kids, to make them more fascinated by technique, by mathematics, and so on. Like, because otherwise I will never increase my percentage, because I will never have a pipeline, right? So I even cannot blame HR at the company. They are just like saying, Karolina, nobody's applying. They're like only guys applying and knocking on our doors. No, we are Siemens. So I think that like this is something that I strongly see that we need to make sure that we touch on all generations in order to improve this digital literacy, and also empower those that are already within the organization. Otherwise, women will remain in like women or those that are not digital literate, they will just like remain in less attractive positions with less opportunities to develop. And I think when I started my career, and I am a millennial, right? I mean, like I'm not really like working already for forever. But when I started my career, job that I'm having now even didn't exist, right? I like chief digital officer right now. It's like super funky title and so on. It didn't exist like 15 years ago, and it won't exist in 15 years, right? So I think that like only if you have growth mindset, if you know how to learn, and if you know how to find time to learn and so on, and then like you know the meaning, you can really shape your career, because probably I will just like end up in totally different position in totally different industries in 10 or 15 years, because I still don't know what I don't know. No, like there are many things that we
That's a good point. Yeah. But and it makes me think about two things. As a medical doctor, we have been actually thinking a lot and working on how can we have a medical the university, the medical faculty. How can we have digital transformation there so that they can actually apply this better? And then I would recommend to all of you. There's this wonderful video on the Estonian. I think they call it a Tiger Leap or something like that, where they give digital transformation sessions to little kids, and they start programming. And when they get out of school, they can just do programming. So you just open up a whole new generation to that. I don't know, Katrina, if you would like to comment on the digital one, and then maybe after that we will move on. Before you do, just to encourage everyone, if you want to leave, if you have questions, just leave them in the chat. And we have here a whole team that is actually watching the chat, and then we can pass them on to our speakers. Also, you can put up your hand if you want to intervene. Katrina, maybe a quick word on digital access to digital transformation for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no question. So I mean, first, we're on the other end of the spectrum, and we're trying to create this pipeline of female technical talent to work at great companies like yours, Karolina. And so in a remote context, that certainly means that our students need working machines to do the work. And certainly we found that when children couldn't go to school and there was one computer in the household, it meant that mom, our student, was privileging, obviously, their child's homework. So we had, in fact, unfortunately, a lot of women have to drop out, a lot of moms have to drop out of our program because they couldn't do it between the childcare as well as just having the infrastructure there to support it, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is certainly building out this pipeline is key. And McKinsey did a really fantastic report with Pivotal Ventures called Rebooting the Rainbow. And they really did deep research into what works for women in tech. And that's not just about getting women into tech and creating these various on-ramps to launch them, but how do we hold on to women into tech? And so, Karolina, what you're doing really fits into their impact strategy. So it's great to hear that.
Very good. Thanks, Katrina. And I asked maybe the team if you can copy a link to the chat of the report that Katrina mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, just ask her by chat to put the link. Katrina can put the link in. Katrina can put the links in the chat. Before, we move. I have two more questions I would like to ask you. One is I just come out of a great session that many of you probably have seen from my colleague Sebastian on the allies, the male allies. And I would like to see from you, did you experience a support by male colleagues or friends in the setting of the company or as an entrepreneur? And what can you say about how important that is to overcome the COVID crisis? Maybe Karolina, you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. So before I started my job, I was at the event with.
Very difficult to hear you.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what this. Probably we should offer you a new mic. That might make the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So is it getting better now?
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Yeah,
just shout if you can.
I will shout. Before I started my job, I've been at one event with Chief Diversity Officer from Microsoft, and I asked her a question, what kind of advice she can give me. I am starting in the company. I am the only not Spanish. I am the woman. I am the only woman, and I'm the youngest in Comité de Dirección, no? Just in the board. And then what she told me, build alliances. Don't think that by being smart and having good ideas, you will manage to implement them. Build your network. Don't be alone, otherwise you will just feel isolated very quickly. And that's why and that was that tip. And I think that it is so important to include males and females, but as an alliance, and recognize those that are truly convinced and truly can support you with you implementing your vision. It is absolutely important, and it's absolutely important also to recognize those males that are a little bit misleading, patronizing behavior with supporting behavior. No, so I think that here we need to be a little bit careful. But I believe that I am very glad that within
my company, the CEO is a big supporter of women and so on. And I think that like we definitely need to find more colleagues. Don't exclude them from female-specific topics.
Thank you, Katrina. I was just checking the chat. We have one question in the chat. Katrina.
Do you envision the future?
This was the question on male support, no?
Yeah.
On allies. That was the session before. And did you find any to help you through the crisis?
I love this question. So first of all, a really well-known civil rights activist back in the United States. She's no longer living. I heard her talk once, and something she said really impacted me. And she said, I don't care if you're black, white, blue, or red. If you share my politics, I want you on my team. My mentor couldn't be anything but more different than me. So to that, when I created CodeOp, which is a women-founded company focused on providing technical training for women, I knew that I wanted men to be part of this. And so we have male instructors, and in fact, our investment team is 90% men. And for me, that's really powerful to see that men are aligning themselves with our mission. And that's precisely what we need to happen.
Very good, very good. I think the question was from Tanya, no? Saying, well, how would it be different when you go back to work after COVID? Would it be, would anything changed compared to maybe a year ago when things were normal? In healthcare, we say the new normal. What is the new normal? What will be the new normal for you after COVID? Karolina.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Perfect, yes.
I am testing everything what I have available here.
This is perfect.
So,
and we see you much closer
I think
also, that's nice.
We very quickly recognized that the new normal doesn't really mean that like we will be back to the way how we worked in the past and so on. Like, so we really need to embrace it. So right now we are in the process of like fully changing our office. We will reduce the number of desks, and our global worldwide policy is to work 2 to 3 days from the office and the rest from any place. No, so we are not even saying it doesn't have to be your work, like it doesn't have to be your home. No, like as long as you have like proper internet connection, you are available and someone you can work from there. So I think this is like one of the biggest changes, and then like. What we are also thinking about, and I think that like when we are speaking about like going back to work, I work in a mobility industry, no? Like, so my clients, is, for example, like Ferrocarriles in Barcelona, Le Renfe, and so on. You can imagine my clients are massively impacted. Nobody's taking metro because it's fun to drive with a metro around at the peak hour, right? I mean, like, we are going to work. So you can imagine like all the industries now will need to rethink how they are generating revenues and so on, like because with the flexibilization of the working time and introduction of the home office, we will definitely see less revenues, for example, for metro providers, right? And also with the reduction of the office space, even if we just like think about like that we will reduce in a city center, even if we reduce all office spaces by 20%, it has a massive impact on the real estate industry. No, so I think that like, and there are like still so many facilities, so many like great grab a coffee here and so on around the office spaces. All these places, they will also need to adjust. So I think that like very often, whenever we're speaking about going back to work, we're like thinking, okay, 2 to 3 days, but like think about like the entire system. There won't be one single industry, I believe, that won't be impacted by all those changes, no? Like starting from real estate to hospitality business and so on. And I'm also like convinced that like also education will change, because now many parents make the experience that online working does work, right? So that like that kids are receptive, that they do have the attention span to be in front of the screen. So I think that like it will change many things. And here, like the survival will be those the most adaptive companies, no? So I think just like here we need to definitely make sure that we recognize it, and no matter what kind of industry you're working on, you adapt to the new normal.
Yeah, so that will actually, what McKinsey describes, this impact also on female, if we don't do anything, no, they actually have different scenarios. If we don't do anything, that will actually have a negative impact. Even so what you described for me sounds rather like what is positive, and also your personal interaction with your clients is probably different. No, you use now to do it over conf call and do not have to go there. So that probably will ease maybe also your workload in the future. So we have both sides. We have negative and positive side. For the entrepreneur, Katrina, what do you see? What is the post-COVID new normal?
Yeah.
Will it be, how does it affect also your way of interacting with your clients?
Yeah, well, certainly our team was less distributed previously. And now, you know, we have some of our staff working in Ghana, some in Portugal, and it seems to be working. So there is now this greater flexibility around that. We don't have the physical constraint, which also enables us to tap into building our team. You know, we have greater access to new instructors because they don't have to be in Barcelona. I think too, there was certainly I would say a negative bias towards remote learning. We saw, for example, students who had signed up to do in-person learning drop out because they were worried that the knowledge wouldn't be transmitted as well. They thought, okay, I'll do in person in 3 months. Well, that wasn't possible. And so in the end, they ended up doing remote learning. And I think we've debunked a lot of the myths and just learned how diverse online learning can be, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous, right? So that's been interesting to explore. And I do think that you know, creating a remote learning program, it's going to continue way past COVID. So I think this is an exciting realm to explore further with our business model. Yeah, just this.
Thanks. Yeah, probably as you both say, the concept of work-life balance will be completely changing. We have to rethink that, and particularly those for the women. No, to kind of finalize the session, I would like you to I had cited The Guardian and Harvard Business School with Jacinta Ardern, and then maybe also the leader of Taiwan, maybe Angela Merkel, who actually did better, well, at least in the first wave, of managing the crisis because of being more having looked for the greater good, being more compassionate in their communication, but also being more listener and taking on expert advice with Trump and Bolsonaro. They, as you said, refused the scientific advice. So there would be another discussion that we can have here now. But I would like you, what advice would you give to all those that are listening to us now, women and men that are moving into, many of them like in the final weeks of the MBA, moving into the work field? What can be done in order to make this the specific contribution that women, female leadership can give to make that work? What would be the advice that you would give? And maybe we start with Katrina this time. What would you tell them? What might be good in order to address also the issue, but to act now, as McKinsey says? What would you recommend?
Yeah, well, certainly first the recognition that this is not an easy problem to solve, right? And it's going to require a diverse response. And to recognize that the effects of COVID on women, well, is also quite diverse. So we are not a monolith, and there's going to be different solutions that work for different women. And to that, while I think that we're on the right path of supporting women and we're gaining momentum and visibility around this, it's going to be really important to make sure that we're giving access to women who are within communities that we're wanting to support. Because if, for example, a student who's a sex worker comes to me because they want to transition into tech and I want to support them, I am not from that realm and I'm not going to know a lot of the problems there. So we want to support women from within that community. Let's give those women the power to make decisions. Let's give them financial power. So to just recognize the diversity of women amongst us and to share power.
Very good. I like that. Thanks a lot, Katrina. Karolina,
Yeah, so I think that, like, first of all, we need to recognize that diversity is not a female issue, it's a business issue. We simply cannot afford to exclude half of the talent, half of the population from decision makers. And I think that, like, we were like showing like the good impact of the female leadership, but basically it's the impact of the diverse team. Because normally if you have like if you have a lot of females, it's a symptom that there is increased diversity on a governmental position. And I think that diversity is improving creativity, is making the results better. And that's why I think that, like, this is what we just, like, we need to have. And what I am sometimes upset that we need to make a business case to prove that it's worth to have women. I mean, like, I have never seen a business case that it's worth to have males, right? I have never seen that. I mean, like, this is how the economy works. We are half of the population. And I think just, like, only if we just, like, bring the forces together, and then, like, it's demonstrated with some complex topics like pandemic response and so on, we need to have diversity, and we need to make sure that, like, all profiles are at the decision table and have a voice.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Karolina. So one thing is parity. We have a right to that, no, because we are human beings, no, like. But also, I think I like the idea of the business. We can actually make the point that we can add a lot more value. I'm just wondering about the time. Should I just pass on to Sarah now if she wants to make a concluding remark? I do that? Okay, good. Now I just want to make sure that, Sarah, here you are. That's great. Maybe you just want to have a final remark. Thanks a lot, Katrina. Thanks, Karolina. For me, it was a real pleasure, and I hope we continue working on these issues together. Karolina, you said as business schools, now we are a good place for doing that, and happy to support that. Sarah.
Thank you so much, everyone. So we'll close the session now. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next, I believe we have a workshop. I think we're running a bit behind, so we'll probably start right away on that. So stay on the Zoom if you'd like.
Let's give a big clap for our speakers,
so
and maybe you can use the